Good morning, Professor Liu.
Good morning.
So can you share with us what made you decide to teach the topic of China in transition, growth model change and innovation at CUHK MBA program?
I think, the major reason is that, when we learn the lessons from the financial crisis, the global crisis, and we automatically found that the growth model we used to cope got to be changed. And I think, for example, in China, or many other economies in Asia, originally we had such a growth models like mass production and the mass exportations, and then we will check our sorts like that, what we keep ourselves, survive, and actually we haven't left us a little money to do the I and the D, and so we couldn't climb up the ladder of the value chain quickly, and so we got to change that. And the Western countries are thinking the same question as well, because what they think is that why US is saving so low and why we are saving so high. This is different questions for different people. So, but the similar challenge for us is that we got to change our growth model, and otherwise we can never cope up with the changes of the new trend. So that's the reason I pick up the topic. And why here? Because, Hong Kong is a good place in my eyes to be access to the information and access to the whole world, the academic and the professional, circles. I have a lot of friends over there, so it's easy for me to exchange the views and the comments and the points with them. So to upgrade my knowledge, and also it's good for me to learn while teaching.
So you mentioned that you name your students participants. So does it mean you have very interactive classes and that the students learn better from your experience?
Oh yes, I think it's very good. I'm very satisfied with the performance. Among my participants, I think 20% are international. Yeah, they're coming from Russia, Germany, and India, and many other countries. And also, we have the local participants, many from Hong Kong, and 20% from mainland China. So it's a good collection. And it's a very good mixture. And people are bringing their experiences and their feelings about the topic, how we can change our growth model, and what's the role got to be played by the government, and what kind of role got to be played by the market, and what's the shortcomings in the past. So it's very active, participants. They are very active, and they are full of the spirits of pioneering and keep digging. So it's good for the group discussions and the presentations. Very good.
So can we now go back to China's growth? Can you explain, in your opinion, how if China's growth would be bad for Western countries, and how can those countries work better with China in the future?
I think it's a very important issue for today's world is communication. Yeah. China got to be much better in the future, try their best, and China should try its best to better the communication and the publicity job, to let the whole world understand her much better. And also, China got to do his homework in a serious way and with certain degrees of transparency, so it could be more acceptable by the whole world. On the flip side of the coin is that the rest of the world, especially the West, should understand that, and all should be fully aware of that. Fast-growing China or fast-changing China is beneficial to everybody in today's world, because if China grows faster, and China needs more from the whole world. So the whole world can benefit from its progress, and by joining the game, and it's a win, which is a win-win.
Mm-hmm. And in your view, for the next 5 years, what are the major challenges facing China, Asia, and the rest of the world?
I think a lot of changes will be happening, and because we are under heavy pressures, and with the change, okay, we need to change, and we change ourselves, change our growth models. In the whole process, there needed a change of the cooperation cross-border. So this is our common task. Specifically speaking, I think in China, in next 5 or 10 years, definitely we will be facing some challenges. Like the first one is the restructuring of the whole industries line by line. And to attain this aim, you got to carry out the reform and opening up policies. And reform and opening up policies is very important, because if you want to restructure some things, you got to build up some fresh ones and new ones. Then you need a fresh blood, and you got to take into your country a lot of international talents. But talents is just a starting point, right? Then you got to change your governance, and better your governance, better your culture, and make China more inclusive, okay? So that would be a daunting task. It's not very easy. And also, I think China got to change its growth model, as I mentioned. The growth model is very important nowadays, and China got to face its domestic market more than external markets to boost the domestic consumptions. Anyway, China has 1.3 billion people. It's a huge market, okay? To tap the potentiality of the domestic market is very important. And thirdly, I think China will be facing, a very important challenge. That is, we got to better up the rule of law, okay? Because if we wanted to restructure the industries and diversify the ownership, for example, and to give more to the private sector, before such a doing, you got to make sure you have a sound and solid platform to do this, to make sure that we won't copy the lessons which we witnessed in Russia, okay, in the transition period of time. So the rule of law is very important. You must create the atmosphere and the environment. It's a mechanism. It's of fair play, okay? So for institutional investors or private sector investors, they must be fairly treated in a through a bidding system. They can acquire certain part of others, which they can pay maybe better than the previous ones. So the rule of law is very important. We got to strengthen and enhance that in next 5 or 10 years. Last but not least, I think in China, it's a big challenge to deal with demography issues, because sooner or later China will enter an aging society. So the pension fund, is that enough? Can we trust the existing arrangement to support the aging population so large? So if there's any gap in between, how we can bridge that. But China, I think I'm still very confident in such a doing, because we have a huge resources about that. So long as we can carry out the reform, for example, in taxation areas, then through the tax reform, I think in China can give much larger room for the localities to maneuver, to deal with such difficult issues like restructuring of the industries, or build up the pension fund, bridge the gap, and support aging society in the future. So I think it's still quite a large room to maneuver. China is rich in tax revenue because it's a fast-growing society. Still, even this year, you know, because we have a lot of downturns in face of the financial crisis and the impact coming from the Euro areas. But still we can witness 6-7% positive growth in GDP. I think in the future, this is a steady growth with us. I think in these areas, I think we are having, you know, common challenges like the first thing first is the green growth. Okay, I think the whole globe, internationally, we got to hand in hand to do a much better job in dealing with that. Firstly, we got to enhance the technology usages and the information sharing and the standard setters. And a lot of in the standard setters got to be working together to raise the standards gradually, so to realize the green growth with us, to make sure that it's with us. And also I think we got to strengthen the enforcement on global basis, because so make sure this is market discipline is part of the market discipline. Second, I think globally, China in particular, we got to work better with the cross-border cooperation. Okay, the cross-border cooperation, cross-border resolution scheme is very important nowadays, especially in guard against any financial crisis or black swan event, because we are very much concerned about the situation happening in Middle East, in Syria, and the conflicts between some countries. So I think we got to work out some platform and a resolution plan and make sure that we will have concrete measures to deal with the crisis beforehand or in the midst of the crisis. Yeah.
And money laundering,
anti-money laundering, anti-money laundering, and anti-terror financing is common challenges to the whole world, and we got to hand in hand do better in these areas. This is very important to us as well, right?
Thank you very much.